Cool. Okay, so welcome to the first State of the Reactor of 2023 here. Got a lot of stuff actually to talk about today. And I should say I'm very happy to be turning the page on 2022 here into a new year. We're going to start by talking a little bit about how DeFi's changed, things we learned sort of in Tokemak v1, and then what that means for Tokemak v2, which we'll start to slowly disclose on this call, but you'll be hearing a lot more coming following this call as well in the coming days. And then I think at the end, you're going to dig into some stuff with sort of some UI updates and survey, I think. So we'll get into that. So just to kick things off here, DeFi has changed a lot since we launched Tokemak. And we've been very closely watching this and figuring out exactly what that means as we build out V2. So just some observations kind of that I have, and then I'll open it up to the team that can share some more. I think we were very much we targeted DAOs as sort of our clients or our users in the early days, and that was great in the bull market. It meant that when things were up, Tokemak was like one of the hottest things people were paying attention to. And then it also meant that as in 2022, with the crashes, things sold off, it probably had sort of a double or a compounded impact on Tokemak, because not only is Tokemak a DeFi protocol, but then also the clients were DeFi protocols predominantly, and they were all kind of retracted. And so the client base was super disrupted. So that's definitely one thing that we've observed and taken into consideration. We want to have a much larger addressable market with Tokemak V2, which we do. We're excited to announce on this call, even though we may not unveil exactly how quite yet. But we'll get into that shortly. Other big thing, I think, just for sort of the moment or the evolution of DeFi is this sort of expansion from constant product pools. So the kind of classic 50-50 Uniswap kind of V2 pools, SushiSwap, etc. Those pools have proven to be, especially in a bear market where there isn't a lot of trading activity, they're just not very profitable. And so we've been doing a lot of studying of sort of other markets and exchanges that are launching across DeFi. So Curve V2, Balancer, and then a whole lot of others that other people on the team here can talk even more than me, and try and understand what all this means as things sort of evolve from 50-50 constant product pools into other things. But really what all this means is those early pools, especially in a market where there's not a lot of trading activity, just aren't really profitable. And so that means that we needed to figure out what Tokemak sort of evolves into next. I think before we go on into sort of what's coming next and how we're sort of responding to all of the learnings from the last handful of months since the market has sold off, maybe you can just open it up to the broader team that's on stage here to see like any other things they want to share with sort of learnings from the V1 model before I talk some about V2 and what's going to happen going forward.
I can start. This is definitely a long conversation. We do a lot of thinking about this, but a couple of highlights. I'll start with what Tokemak, the original instantiation, did really well in my mind, and that was we proved that we could develop these incentive systems that could take single assets and pair them together and then deploy them to where assets could be more profitable, or in this market sometimes less unprofitably, which is just sort of a byproduct of the reactors that we have and the places that we could deploy liquidity to. So that was great. The rough edges, I think, were highlighted in, as Carson said, the status of the profitability of those markets. And a lot of that is in particular, on the ETH side of things, where Tokemak stepped in and effectively provides now in the ETH reserve for a lot of our deployments. I think we have DAOs on the other side of that can provide some of the reserve and the protection that we built into the first version of Tokemak. But it still leaves sort of the ETH side unattended to, or without the proper incentives to want to take on the risk of those deployments. And so I think that's been a big focus that you'll start to see, and really excited for where this is going and kind of the feedback that we're getting from different DAOs that we've been talking to along the way.
Other things anyone wants to share? Sharp, Bruno, anyone?
Yeah, I was going to refer specifically to the limitations in terms of scaling that we had with the reserve system. And the goal now with V2 is really to expand that addressable market beyond those DAOs and really target the average DeFi user. And by doing so, we're going to provide a platform for liquidity management that is not constrained by all of these restrictions that we have on the initial model. Another thing that you already mentioned, it's the fact that during the market reversal, when we went to the bear market regime, we observed that the DAOs that were supposed to be highly interested in maintaining these liquidity deployments, well, they also needed to protect their runways. So obviously everyone went into contention mode. And again, this new product for V2 aims to go beyond that, and that's the current focus. And we have found a direction that we're all really, really excited about. And we hope that the community, when we're able to reveal everything, which right now I think that it's too premature in terms of the business side and even the development side, it's just a very exciting direction for now. And again, it addresses all the learnings and pinpoints that we had on V1.
And now we'll start talking a little bit about that, but just to sort of reiterate, I think, let me talk about a few things that the team, through a lot of research and then a lot of internal debate, has ultimately kind of determined were high priority things that we wanted to make sure V2 captured. So one, as Sharp was saying, we want to make sure that our addressable market is both much larger, but also much larger than Tokemak V1, but also much less dependent on the market regime we're in. So I mentioned earlier on that, like, not only is Tokemak a DeFi protocol, so in the sell-off of 2022, it was directly impacted, but the clients were impacted because DAOs were impacted, and then also the rewards that we're earning are largely in alt, or are often in alt tokens, and those, of course, had sold off. So you kind of get hit these multiple ways. So with V2, we wanted to make sure that we're not nearly as dependent on market regime, and our addressable market is no longer just DAOs, but can be a completely general user of DeFi. So just much more broader. And I feel very confident that the new approach we have is going to be orders of magnitude larger for both addressable market in terms of kind of market cap of tokens, which also means capacity for generating TVL. And then as a kind of implication of that, way higher possibility for rewards generation, which of course is good for Toka holders, as a lot of that will likely flow through. The other kind of two things that we really want to make sure are captured here with the V2 model, which we'll start to talk about today, is to get, we're aiming to get everything fully on chain. So we want to have sort of all triggers, all of these things sort of as completely on chain as possible. And then a sort of a implication of that is accomplishing that also makes this very, V2 will be very easily reproducible on chain, which means we can expand to layer 2s in a much more straightforward fashion than V1. So we're excited sort of about all of those pieces. And as Sharp started to talk about, what V2 is all about is really Tokemak evolving into a general purpose liquidity network with liquidity management capabilities. So this is going to allow us to expand our addressable market very significantly. And there's going to be some basic building blocks, which we're still working on exactly what the sort of buzzword or marketing term is with it, whether we call it liquidity network pools, plasma pools. These are a couple things that we're kicking around. But effectively, you will now have general liquidity deployments where pools, you have a pool. You also have a few different things that can optionally be plugged into those pools. So external supply, external rewards, a manager, and then the ability for the tokens to be turned into other tokens or not, and then possible venue deployments. And our DAO model for two-sided trading market liquidity is just one, but one important model that ports into this. And there's a lot of others, which we won't get into yet quite on this call. But Maybe Sharp or someone can talk a little bit about sort of how this can be a powerful way to sort of allow DAOs to approach liquidity management in a different way. And Sharp, I think you hit a little bit of this earlier on the call, but anything else you want to share on that front?
Yeah, even before that part, I really wanted to address the sustainability of this new product. So one of the pain points that we also observed clearly on V1, it was in terms of emissions. And we wanted to be able to design a product where even if you're not incentivizing it, you're able to have users because you're offering a product where maintaining the same risk profile, you can have better adjusted returns. So in terms of sustainability, which I know that is a common concern within the community, we plan to keep emissions in control, and going forward, that will be the approach that we want to target for V2.
Okay, great. Anything you wanted to share on the DAO approach, or not at the moment?
To be honest, I'm
for now.
Yeah. I don't want to reveal too much because we know that we don't want to expose the full V2 plan. We want to go to market, as Carson mentioned, not just on layer 1, but also on layer 2. And we want to maintain our moat for now because we do believe that it's a very important value proposition.
So a couple of things just then at a high level about V2. So I mentioned that there's going to be significant new reward generation capabilities because our users of Tokemak are going to be much, much broader than just DAOs. And so the reward capabilities that, of course, is attracted to Toka. There's also going to be some new governance available here. So this concept of sort of configuring a liquidity deployment, which can be for a much more broad set of purposes than just for two-sided sort of pool 2 deployments. There's going to be the ability for Toka holders to participate in that governance process of sort of establishing new pools. And I should say that we've identified a couple very compelling first pool products, which we're not going to unveil here at the moment. But those we sort of know, in addition to serving DAOs, what other pools are going to be extremely compelling that we're going to launch with. Let's see. Another
aspect that we should mention, Carson, and I'm sorry to interrupt, it's that with the current design that we envisioned for V2, it's a highly adaptive product. Meaning that as new AMMs appear in this space, the value proposition becomes better and better because we aim to really target the switching costs in terms of moving liquidity from one AMM to the other. And this is one of the pain points that we also observed. It was the migration of liquidity from SushiSwap to Curve, which you'd expect that a rational agent in the market would just arb those APRs, and they should more or less converge to the same point. And yeah, that's part of what we're also targeting, and again, with what we've learned. And I was discussing not long ago with a community member that was telling that we were somehow in competition with Curve, and that's really not the case. It's quite the contrary. With V2, we will benefit from more AMMs. And Sam was also referring this on the call. There are a lot of interesting AMMs that we are looking at. And as they come online, our value prop with V2 just improves. And we're trying just to call it liquidity management for now. But the marketing buzz can come after the product is actually prepared. So for now, we should probably just use a code word for it.
So just a couple more things on kind of V2, and then we'll throw it over to End, and he can dig into some of the other things on kind of the survey and some UI updates. So two things, I guess, related to tokenomics and just tokens in general going forward. So we're going to have an update within the next 2 weeks on some new token locking mechanics, and this will help with token unlocking and supply management. We've already had a number of people, both team investors as well as on the locked side, as well as on the unlocked side, ask about longer lockups and express interest in locking longer. So we're going to have more to disclose on that front shortly. And in general, just on tokenomics, we're also thinking, though V2 totally starts from a point where we want to have an audience that is not just DAOs that can be compelling product market fit in any market, bear, bull, or otherwise, and have a protocol that can generate significant rewards that can benefit everyone in the Tokemak community. We start there and then work into tokenomics, which is sort of backwards, but the much more logical way than how DeFi tended to do things in the last cycle. And so while we're much more focused on what the protocol natively does and how it generates native rewards or native returns internally, then there's going to be new governance capabilities, and then of course new reward flow into the protocol means new reward opportunities that we can work into Toka staking or ACC Toka staking and locking. So more to come on that front too. But in general, V2, like 2023, will be the year of a full sort of revamp on Tokemak, and this isn't going to be incremental. You'll still be able to do many of the things you could do in V1, but in a much more powerful sense. And then there is this concept of liquidity management. It's going to flow this open to where anyone using DeFi, anyone holding tokens can come, and without nearly as much friction or complexity. We also think that we were probably a little too complex with V1. With V2, we want it to be very easy for token holders to come deploy things for liquidity needs, and of course receive the yield or the rewards that are generated from that process. So I think with that, well, first, before we throw it over to End on the UI stuff, anything anyone on the team has, since I covered a lot of ground, where they want to hit any other pieces in a little more detail?
Maybe one request. If there are any members of the audience that are participants in other DAOs that are thinking about liquidity, we continue to talk to DAOs all the time, and would love to engage with you as we continue to kind of validate, define, and build the product that will help DAOs govern, manage, create their liquidity in a much better way than they can do or have been able to do up to this point, and will do in the future. You can ping me or anybody on the team here.
Yeah, great point. Anything else before we move on?
Just a general statement that we are all just focused on V2 right now. That's the current state of things. And as soon as we can share more details, we will address the whole community. And what we will also have ramping off V2, it will be a series of announcements, because it will be a product that it's going to be progressively rolled out. So much of our lack of presence, for example, on social media, which we all acknowledge, it was really due to the current development, and we are aware of that. We want to have a roadmap that allows us to release products on a frequent basis, and that's the current focus.
Yep, you'll be hearing a lot, and these things are going to roll up progressively in V2, so it won't be one moment when the switch all of a sudden is all on. So, okay, I think End, let's move on to the next piece.
Yep, so we're going to be doing a public user survey for the Tokemak UI experience in order to gather some data that we'll use for improving the next iteration. So we're calling the next version of the UI 1.5, but just as a side note, it's not just going to be an updated version of the current UI, it's going to be a complete overhaul. We're just calling it 1.5 so as not to confuse it with Tokemak V2, which when released will utilize the 1.5, using air quotes right now, UI version. And the biggest pain point for the previous UI was that it really wasn't systematized with components like across the board, which was kind of a pain point for adding new features. But with the new version comes a new look and what we think will be a better overhaul and easier and more intuitive user experience, especially for new users. And with the new system, the way that our designer is doing it, it'll help us integrate the new Tokemak V2 items more seamlessly and much faster. So the survey is meant to gather information to make the new version better, and participants in the survey will be issued a Tokemak Access NFT, which will give access to a new channel in the Discord for user feedback as we get closer to the launch of the new UI. This NFT is just purely for accessing the channel. It's not like an NFT collection or anything. So it won't have any speculative value. And it may not even be transferable, but it's really just to give access to this feedback channel, which, there'll be like some cool sneak peeks in there and stuff. And we'll be looking forward to the community's initial impression. I should say that in my personal opinion, the new UI looks pretty sick. I'm pretty excited about it. I know a lot of the people on the team are, and it'll put us in a really good position for when the V2 comes out. So we're working through the details of how that process is going to go. We have the survey ready, but I think we're meeting with this platform that we might use to issue the NFT early next week, which would kind of relieve us of the duty of creating like a contract from scratch, which, even though it's not that hard, Cody could do it pretty quickly, but he's a busy man. So that survey will likely be tweeted and shared in the Discord early next week. But yeah, so that's the thing about the survey and the new UI updates. So I don't know if I think we're a little bit hesitant to give any timeline on that. Craig, I don't know if you want to. Probably not. I know you're very averse to giving out timelines.
We are actively working on it. I think the reality is that the direction of what and when we launch with Tokemak V2, as we kind of finalize what that scope looks like, may also impact the timing of the new UI. So we'll keep you posted on that, and you'll see new stuff soon, either in the form, partly in the form of 1.5 and then V2 hopefully soon after.
Right. I think, I'm not sure if I said this, but in theory, like the quote unquote 1.5 version, I think we are trying to time that with like some of the new pieces of V2, even if it's not the full V2. So there may still be some new products that are rolled out at the timing of the release of the V1.5. So yeah, that's it.
Cool. And just linking back on V2 stuff, I know I said we shared more, but it probably feels just very generalized here. I'm actively putting things into sort of visuals right now that can kind of convey how V2 works at sort of a rolled up level. So hopefully we'll be able to share some of that with Discord and the community ASAP here, since the team now sort of is fully aligned and we're driving forward actively on V2 stuff. So,
but also we have to be smart about what we say and when we say it, because everybody knows crypto is the dark forest. It's a jungle. It's a sea of pirates. So I think it's good to just say that out loud, that we're not saying things because we want to make sure that when we say them, it's ready to be active.
Well, yeah, and I think this is what
first one.
What
want to be the
Paul's
first
getting
one
to is first mover advantage. We want to make sure that when we launch, we're the first ones to do it. Yes. And if you prematurely do it, someone else may try to beat you to it. So we feel like we're going to have a really strong position as this launches. So
Awesome. Cool. I think that's kind of all we had today, and getting close to the hour. So thanks everybody for joining. Does anybody else have anything left to say? I think otherwise we can conclude. But we're excited.
Just finishing on a note that going forward, we'll probably also request some feedback from the community to some V2 related things. And I think that, namely, for example, the layer 2s to choose, I think that it will be consensual, but some feedback on the desired chains there might also be helpful.
Yep, totally agree. So a lot more. We'll keep talking and keeping everyone updated on V2. And Happy New Year here, everyone. Excited to be building into the new year. So talk to everyone soon.
Have a nice weekend, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Appreciate it.
See ya.
Yeah, guys.
See y'all.